So our topic today is fun with dates and how to run an ongoing webinar series without, number one, using up all of your custom fields, and number two, without having to go into the campaign and constantly touch it and retool it, and after every single webinar. In fact, the way that I started out doing it, I'm going to show you some before and afters. The problem I was having with it was that I was not only was I having to touch it after each webinar, but I was having to touch it multiple times. And that was not going to work. And then the other thing is, I really wanted to be able to, or I like to be able to give some of this kind of setup work to a VA, right? And the way it was, there was just no way that a VA, at least not mine, was going to be able to figure out, how to do this. So I'll show you some before and afters. Oh, so let me just tell you, it says this one, in fact, because what I am going to be doing is showing you the campaign that runs this webinar series. It's an ongoing webinar series. It's every 2 weeks. And the way it's set up, though, in GoToWebinar is every 2 weeks is its own webinar. It's got its own join link that way. And the reason I did it that way is so that it's easier to get tracking information about who attended and who didn't attend, as opposed to doing that with their recurring webinars. So in order to set it up that way, I originally started with this. Come on, Firefox. Let's see here. I originally started with this version 2. Actually, I started with something else. This is version 2. And version 1 was even more of a mess. But so this is the mess that originally I created, and actually is the campaign that you're in right now. I haven't moved you over to version 3, which I'm going to show you yet. I'm going to do that after this webinar. Because I was doing a lot of tweaking on it so that I could show it to you, so I didn't want you to be in it. But now that I've shown it to you, I'm going to move you guys into it because it's going to be much cleaner. But you can kind of see what I had going here, which is at the down here, this is where someone came in to the, there was a form here where you registered, and then it ran some scripts here, and it sent you a confirmation email, and then it stuck you into the piece of the campaign that was for your specific webinar, the next one, and then did some things specific to that, and eventually dropped you into a attend or do not attend sequence and so forth. And it was ugly. There was one of the maybe cardinal rules of coding is that you never write the same code twice. You always try to reuse things as much as possible. It's not only is it just more elegant, but it's a much better use of resources, computer resources. It makes your websites run faster, your scripts run faster, what have you. So this has a ton of duplication in it, right? Every one of these things is essentially duplicated. And a lot of the code is duplicated, and it was really cumbersome, and it was hard to explain, and it just wasn't that elegant. And I plan to do the response to these has been really, really good. As I said, we've got like 150 people signed up for this one. So since I plan on continuing to do them, I didn't want to. I mean, this thing would become huge. It'd take up, just even if I was deleting things, it would become unmanageable, right? So my goal was to clean this up into something better. And so the version that I'm now have is this one. I took that entire mess that you saw on the other page and got it all down to this. And what happens is, as you sign up and you go through and we have a webinar, and then you get to the end of this, it just loops you right back around, sticks you back in, and all you do is you just keep looping through this sequence right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through this and show you kind of what I did and how I did it. As usual, I will tell you that these webinars, these Extending Infusionsoft webinars, are really more about what you can do with Infusionsoft and with using the API, and why you would want to use the API to do these things. What can you do with the API that you couldn't do without it, for example, and what are the advantages of using the API over, say, an app like Plus This or I Remember 360 or some of the marketing maven stuff and what have you. It's really meant to be a little bit higher level as opposed to teaching you how to write the code, even though I do give you the code, because it's sometimes I do end up kind of going down into it. And also, if you're so inclined, I want you to have that so that you can go off and try to replicate some of the things that I'm doing. The I do offer, and I will be offering in January a free course called Write Your First Script in 4 hours or less for anybody who attends these webinars. If you've already attended, you probably got an email about that already, asking you for the dates and times that would be. I needed to know what time zone you were in so that I could kind of try to schedule that where the most people could attend. I have gotten quite a lot of responses already for that. I am tentatively planning that for the week of January 7th. And we will break it up into 4 1-hour sessions. But that's where we will start to focus more on the how as opposed to the what and the why. If you can get the how out of this, great. But for those of you, I especially today, more so than the past two, because there's so much in this. It doesn't look like much, but when you see the scripts, there is so much going on here. There's just absolutely no way I can really explain the scripts themselves, other than to kind of take you through and show you what they do, right? So, with that in mind, let me just, because I have a little bitty screen, I can't keep my questions and my um, stuff open on the same screen. So I'll just check. So far, everybody seems to be good. All right. Oh, good. Lots more people showing up. That's great. Okay. So moving on. Similar to um, the big messy version that I showed you. This obviously starts, as you would expect, with the registration form. It's the same form that you all filled out on our website. So when you fill out this form, um, we have this. So um, going along here, I'm applying some tags. I'm applying some more tags. Yes, I know those could have gone together, but I thought of them after the fact, so they're separate. And then what you see is you see two HTTP post snippets. So anytime that you see an HTTP post snippet, that means that there is some sort of script running somewhere and to do something, right? So the meat of this entire sequence, not this little sequence, but the entire campaign sequence, is this script right here. And I will show that to you, because what it does is it determines when, based on at the time that this script runs, what is the next webinar coming up, and then it sets a bunch of fields based on what it determines to be the next webinar. So I'm going to show you this. You can follow along. The links to these in GIST are all uh, on the handout. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Again, I'm going to try not to get too deep into the code, but rather to, and I will tell you, I was working on this as late as, excuse me, last night about 2:30. So this is not the cleanest, most beautiful code I've ever given you. This is working code. So just, bear with me on this. So it's called Webinar Next Date v3.php. And connect to Infusionsoft. Most of you have seen that if you've been in any of these webinars previously. You also know, although some of you, when you emailed me over the last 2 weeks and needed help with some of the scripts that you were trying to do yourself, a couple of you kind of ran into a snag on this. So I'm just going to explain this to you again. This is going to be the case in almost every script that I write. Okay, so I have two, we have these same two variables. Almost every script is going to get some information from the post, right? Because since we call them from, this is the HTTP post, well, there's this super global variable called post. And that's going to take the information that is sent over in that post, in this case, contact ID and email, and you've got to get it from the post in order to use it and work with it in your script. And generally, that's going to come from the post, right? And that's what this little global variable is, or the super variable. And I assign it to a variable here. But for testing purposes, when I'm writing these scripts and testing them, I never actually, it'd be tedious because sometimes I might run this script, every 20 seconds. Oop, that didn't work. I call it my dang it method of programming. I try it. Oop, that didn't work. Oop, oh, I need a space there. Oop, that's misspelled there. Oop, and so I just keep submitting it. Dang it, submit it. Dang it, fix it. Submit it. Dang it. So the way to do that, and you'll see because I'm going to do it for you, is actually through the browser. Well, if you're going to do it in the browser, the way that you do that is you just hard code some values. So I have some test accounts in my as I'm sure you do, in my Infusionsoft account. I happen to use my dogs all the time and my horses. So Drita Dog is my dog. And for this purposes of this, I have all these fields wiped out so I can show them to you. But Drita is our test case. She's you can see here her ID is 18853 and her email is drita@kimsnyder.com. So when you look at my code, you will often see either, so these are comments. These little two slashes, this is a comment in PHP. It's two ways to do a comment. This is one of them. So it ignores anything after the slash. So either you will see these two lines commented out, or you will see these two lines commented out. One or the other. When you get ready to actually call this from within a campaign, you're going to have to comment out these two, right? And uncomment these two, otherwise it isn't going to work because number one, you don't have Drita Dog, you probably don't have a record 18853, and you want that to be dynamic coming from the post. So before I go any further, let me just make sure, does anyone have any questions on all of that, or is everybody clear on that? Because a couple of people did run into some problems with that. They got object doesn't exist or some other things, and that was why. All right, I don't see anything, so I'm going to keep going. All right. Anyway, I said I wasn't going to get in the code, and there I just did. Boom. But that's okay. I think that is time well spent. So here's my hard-coded test information here. All right. And then, so what I did here is